Hey everybody, we got a cool video for you today. What that's going to be is we're going to change out pickups in this 2004 Les Paul Standard. These are great pickups in here already. We got a JB and a Jazz. That's my favorite combination in a Les Paul. A lot of other guitars too. We're doing this strictly cosmetic. We're going to change these out from black to a zebra. Stick with me and see the results. We got everything laid out in front of us. All the tools we're going to need, protective covering. I have fancy tools and I have a fancy setup, but I'm sure most of you don't. So I'm just doing this on a coffee table with a cheap towel that I bought at Dollar General, with a cheap washcloth and a bag of sugar. You can buy all the stands and jigs and holders and all that stuff from Stu Mac. This is $2, this was $7, this was $3. So if you don't have that stuff and you don't want to make the investment because you're only doing this once, this is probably your best way to go. So we're going to loosen the strings. Like I said too, there's a fancy string winder, all that other stuff. I have it. I'm just too lazy to break it out, and some of you may not. So we're doing this as though this is your first intro to a pickup change out. You might want to buy that stuff if you're going to be doing multiple ones, but this is the easiest way to get you off to make it sound. We're going to go ahead and cut the strings. I like to cut them above a pickup or on the fretboard. So in case you drop this tool, it doesn't mar the finish of your guitar. This guitar gets played minimum 2 times a month, and it's a tool to me. I don't, although it's a nice guitar and sounds great, I don't baby it anyway because it is a tool. So you see how I did that? Hold on to your strings because this will fall. Another way to damage your finish. Set that aside. Next, you're going to take off your Tune-O-Matic. Keep an eye out for which way the directions the strings were going, or the adjustment screws were going for the intonation. They're pointing towards the back of the guitar. If you don't put that right, you're gonna have to re-intonate the guitar and probably change that to the way it is once you see a picture of it and realize that every other Les Paul on the planet wasn't going that way. So take that off. Just set it down the way it goes, and then it's easier to put it back together. Finish removing your strings. I like to tie these in a knot so my cats don't run away with them. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take the knobs off, because the easiest way to do this is remove the cavity from the inside. So we're going to do that. I have this little tool. I think it came from, I don't know, I bought something on eBay to, I think it was a nut file, and they sent this with it, so that was a bonus. So we're going to just remove those. This is something that I recommend investing in. They're pretty cheap. You can get a good one for, I don't know, maybe less than $10. Or you can get a cheap one on eBay. They save lives and they do protect the finish of your guitar. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take off the volume and tone knobs. That's what you need to do to get this cavity out of here. It's a control plate. You'll see what I'm talking about when I get this taken apart from the back side. So what we're gonna do that with is a 1/4 drive socket and a 1/2 inch socket on that. It doesn't need to be a multi-point. It can just be your standard, what comes in the set. Again, I like to set everything off to the side in the orientation that it came off. You might have a little snaggle on one of these threads on one of these knobs, so if you set it there, I've seen them come kind of almost cross-threaded on an angle from the factory. So if you just set them aside and put them back on the way they came, you know you're going to have no problems. That's just the mechanic in me. That's how we'll do it. Okay, we will be taking the pickups off. That's going to be in a later step. If you do it now, they're going to bounce around and smash all over the place and mar up your guitar finish if that's something that is crucial to you. Mine's already there. It's probably already had a couple pickup mars, but I'm not worried about that. But we're going to teach you good practices and good habits for when you do it. All right, so we have all this loosened up. We're leaving these tight. Everything on here that could fall off is off, okay? Okay, we've turned the guitar over. You don't need a separate rest under here. It'll stay on those posts that the tailpiece and the tune-o-matic are in on, so you're good on that end, just saving you steps to do that. So we're gonna use a small Phillips. This is a number 1. You can get a cheap set of these at Harbor Freight, or you can get them at Home Depot. Pretty hard to find one that's made in America anymore. Maybe if you went to, you know, a Matco or a Snap-on, if you're only doing this once and you don't use these that often, go with what you can afford. Okay, you see we have our control cavity opened up and we've exposed the plate in here. This guitar is, I don't want to say heavily modded, but it is modded to a degree. Some of the mods that we have done on here that I use very often are 2 treble bleed circuits. I have 1 on each volume control. So if you're not familiar with a treble bleed, what that does is when you roll off the volume to control like your gain or to clean up a channel or something, if that's how you do that, which is what I do. I play primarily out of a combination of 2 amps. A Fender Deluxe from 1967, Deluxe Reverb that is, and a Marshall Silver Jubilee, the reissue. So although the Marshall has 2 channels, I don't switch on that. There's quite a bit of a volume jump between the 2 channels. I like the gain, and with a Marshall on that, I can roll off the volume and get a clean, almost cleaner than a Plexi clean sound on that, and it's still full with that mod in there. On the Fender, I have coil tapping, and this will make a single coil. We play this on a couple blues songs that I utilize that for. I have the coil tap knobs in where the tone knobs would be. I have different capacitor values as well that give a little more clarity to that. So I can still get a Les Paul sound, and I can get a Strat sound, or anything between. So this is just an all-around great guitar for what I do with it. So go ahead and pull that out. Pushing up on the knobs from the other side with your fingers. One that's never been taken out might be a little bit of a challenge, but it's totally doable. And spin it around whatever configuration you need to get it out. So it looks like I'm gonna have to take this jag off to get this out. Not a problem. Same 1/2-inch socket. Set your hardware aside. Same number 1. Another reason I say to set this stuff aside is on some guitars, they use different screws. They're very hard to distinguish when you have them apart and they're all setting aside, but you're definitely going to know when you put it back together, and that saves you some time and some frustration, and then you don't lose your stuff. Okay. We have our control cavity out. Keep in mind too, there was 2 lock nuts behind this. So what I'm gonna do is put all this stuff back together. I will have to take it apart, but I won't be looking for it and I won't be remembering how it was. Okay. Gibson doesn't give you too much slack with wiring. That's fine. Just take a look at it, maybe even take a picture of what is not related to the pickups. Because it may snap off. You're going to check your connections anyway, make sure they're still good from the factory. Sometimes a little lackluster soldering job on that end. This one's pretty good. I've changed these pickups out. Like I said in the title, what we're doing, this is strictly for aesthetics. I like the way the zebra looks. It looks a lot better in the stage lighting. When it shines on the guitar, the black kind of gets lost and it gets kind of it kind of clashes. So we're just doing this strictly from aesthetic standpoint. Okay, there's two schools of thought on how to do this. Some people like to cut the wire, leave it in place, and then you know exactly where it went. Other people, if you're more familiar and you have your picture documentation, you can just desolder them as they are and solder them back up in reverse order. So we're gonna do that in reverse order. So I'll point out this too. This has another thing on here too. This actually has a tone bypass. So in my bridge humbucker mode, when I'm doing it in humbucker mode, not coil split single coil, I want the tone totally bypassed. Les Pauls depends on how they are. They're all a little different, but I like them dark with this mod. So this mod gives me that bright and then even more bright. It stays there, but it'll cut through, but it won't be ice picky. So with a Les Paul, I do that. With a Strat, I have a no-load tone pot, but it usually is just right over that threshold of where it's activated at 0. Okay, bridge, coil split, neck coil split, bridge ground, neck ground. All right, so those are the auxiliary peripheral connections that you might not normally have on a pickup. Here we're going to do the actual positive and then actual positive of the neck. Okay, so the pickups are free at this point. Okay, so look, I already had a wire come off. Just keep in mind, that is the bridge. This goes to the 3-way switch. Like I said, Gibson doesn't give you a lot of free wiring. You know, that's money apparently. 2004, they must have been going through shortage of wire or shortage of money. So we'll have to make a note to put that back. That's going to go right on this other side of this pot. No big deal. So what we're going to do now is neatly tuck this back in here, just enough so it doesn't smash the guitar up when we turn it over. So we're all done on the back side for now. Now we're going to begin to take the pickups out. These are not the correct screws that go in these pickup rings. I'll be putting those in. I don't know why those were installed, but they've been there a while before I got this guitar. So we're going to be putting the correct springs in. Again, reinforce that habit, keeping the bridge screws, even though we're not reusing them, keeping the bridge screws back in the same spot away from the neck ones. Okay, another point to take note of, pickup heights. Although I'm putting the same exact set back in, every pickup set is different. I don't care what they say, I don't care who winds it, I don't care how many mass production techniques there are, every set is different. That's just, there's earth elements in here, there's wire, resistance varies by wire, days of humidity, all those things. So just keep an eyeball of where your pickups are. You can measure them with a ruler, you can mark them, you can do whatever you want. The way I do it, I've done this so many times, I have them kind of muscle memory, but these post tanks don't change. I usually line it up right with this, and I usually line this up with the front of the pickup ring in the front. That's the way I do it for this guitar, most Les Pauls in general. Okay, pull your pickups out. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna set the guitar aside and we're gonna reinstall the pickup rings on the new pickups. Okay, so if you look on these pickups, once you get the wires untangled, they have a little label on here. SH4, I don't know what the initials stand for. 4 means that it's a JB. SH means that it is going in a Les Paul style bridge, Tunematic style bridge, stop tail style bridge. There's a bunch of different names for it. If it's a Les Paul style guitar, it's gonna be an SH. If it was in a Floyd Rose or a Fender style guitar, it would be TB. That means trumbucker. I think this means standard humbucker. The neck for any of those guitars, whether it's a Fender or Gibson, the spacing is going to be the same. It's just going to say SH2N, standard humbucker neck. Okay. So another thing to take note of is the length of the exposed leads. Looks like these are stock, what they came with stripped from the factory. We're going to do a little bit more to make it easier to route. If you do this correctly and you twist the wires together and you shield them and you be mindful, you will not get any noise. I know a lot of people are going to comment on that, but I've been doing this a long time and you won't get any noise if you do it the way that I'm doing it. All right, so just take note on that. Okay, we have our old pickups disassembled. We're going to reassemble our new ones. This is a pain. I don't know really any tricks on how to not get the springs to fly over the place. We'll see how I do with it on camera. As I've mentioned a couple times in this video, I'm reusing the same hardware on this. This guitar is natural relic, it's natural wear. I don't want to have shiny new hardware on there, that bothers me. So we're just gonna reuse the old ones. Again, these are tapped from the factory. You may have to deburr those. We'll see how it goes. If that's the case, we're gonna deburr them with the new screws that come with them, and then we're gonna reuse the old ones. So you get to watch me fumble around with this and see how much of an idiot I look like. I like to start one side so it holds it. Double check you have the neck in there so you don't have to redo it again. All right. Like I said, going with that tolerance, get it about close to the front of the neck pickup ring. I'm gonna do the same thing with the bridge. These are tapered. These ones go together pretty well. Seymour Duncan makes great stuff. Some of the import pickups are a different screw size. They're a number 6 machine screw. These are a number 4. The reason these go in easier are because it's a smaller screw size. The larger size, like a number 6, is really hard to do, and the screws are maybe, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch shorter. That 1/8 of an inch makes a tremendous amount of difference with doing this in the ease of installation. I don't know why they do that. Maybe they should put a couple of pickups together themselves, and maybe they'll start changing that. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna strip back and we're going to prep these wires to be installed to make the installation go a lot easier. So what we're gonna do that is we're gonna do the utility knife with a new blade. Just be careful of this. I think we're all adults. Somebody younger, inexperienced may be doing this, or someone that doesn't have the greatest mechanical skills. Anybody can do this. So just watch how I do it. So when we do this, we're gonna score around the outer jacket. And in here is a shield. It's like a piece of tin foil. It's usually blue or silver, greenish color, something like that. So what you want to do is you want to ring, not all the way around to cut into this, but just enough to score it, and then we're going to wiggle it back and forth and break it off. Kind of twist it in a circle. Comes off real easy. So then just do a double check, make sure you didn't nick any wires. We could fix them if you did, not that big of a deal. But just do a double check. So that's going to give us enough length to get our coil split in there. Our ground, and also our positive lead. So I'm twisting these together because you'll see how this goes in the next part where we solder them. Okay, that's neck. Just do an eyeball, get the same length for the strip back on the bridge. I'm not pushing the knife in, I'm just resting on this and I'm spinning this. And that's enough to just get to that shield layer, and then it comes right off. The shield layer can be a pain depending on how it was wrapped. If they wrap going this way, it makes it easier. If they wrap going this way and install the wire, it's a little bit more of a pain. So I got lucky on that one. Again, do a double check, make sure you didn't nick anything. They can also nick something from the factory, so just that's a good thing to keep an eye on too, as well, be mindful of. So separate the wires you're going to twist. Twist them together. This is what gives you your shielding of those noise making characteristics of the guitar, especially when you have this tapped in single mode. Okay, so something to note, even though we're not doing this on this guitar, if you weren't going to utilize coil tapping on this, you would strip these back. You wouldn't strip, well, if you had to strip them back, you're gonna do that anyway, just keep that in mind. If you weren't using those, you would put a bigger piece of shrink tube over this and isolate it. And you would just be using your ground and your positive. Okay? All right, so we're going to get to the soldering part of this demo. So what you're gonna need is a good soldering iron. You can get a good one cheap at Harbor Freight. Don't buy the $4 one that has its own cord. Get one that has a base and a stand and an adjustable knob on there. I think I got this one for $30. It's worth buying it. You're gonna use it again in your lifetime, and it's gonna pay itself off. So we have our flux, our solder, our cleaning station, and our flux brush. I'm not going to use the flux brush for this step. What we're going to do is we're just going to dip the wires into the actual flux container. You don't need a lot. I usually go halfway on the wire. So now we are ready to so clean off your iron before you solder. Some people like to use helping hands. They're like a little alligator clip system. I don't prefer those for a lot of things I do. Everybody's different. I'm not gonna do a tutorial on soldering. That'd be a whole nother video. What you're basically just going to be doing is putting your soldering iron at an appropriate heat, placing it in the middle of the wire, and then attaching your solder. Once you see the flux melt, that's usually hot enough to melt the solder. This is called tinning, what we're doing. Okay, we're ready to go on the bridge. Now we have the neck. Okay, this next step we're going to do is we're going to install the shrink tubing on here. I like to do this exact way. You don't need to do a couple of these steps and you can have luck. I do it this way because I guarantee that it guarantees me results with what I'm going for. And it gives a nice finished appearance. So we're going to be putting shrink tube over the ground, and we're going to be putting shrink tube over this coil split. You don't need to do it over the coil split. I guarantee someone's gonna say that. But this guarantees that it stays wrapped like this. And if that stays wrapped, that reduces your chances of getting noise. So we're gonna just cut enough to where it shows that this is the red and green. And we're gonna cut enough that it shows that this is the ground side. Two of those for that pickup. Check the length on the other one. Two of those for that pickup. And then when we're all done, we're gonna put just a little cover over this. So go about 3/4 of an inch. This just gives you a nice finished appearance. Okay. This is 3 30-second shrink wrap. And this is, I believe, 1/4 inch. 5/16 will work, 1/4 inch will work. These are the common sizes though. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna shrink this down. I like to use the body of the soldering iron. Just rest this on there. You don't need a lot of heat. So we're gonna shrink this down. I like to use the body of the soldering iron. Just rest this on there. You don't need a lot of heat. As long as you get it on the extra shrink tubing, you won't burn the wire. This will go exactly to the size of the wires that are underneath it. You're going to do your outer wrap. So try to get these to where they're not twisted over each other. And this one, I like to do this with a lighter. started because there's a lot to shrink on that one. So then finish it up with your soldering iron. You can use a heat gun. It's probably the best way to do it, but not everybody has one, and I don't feel like getting it out, and this is how I've been doing it for a long time. So just be careful and don't burn your house down. All right, we're gonna start with our neck first. The way Gibson's made is it's two parts. You have a maple top, and you have a mahogany body. Before the top gets put on, they route a channel in here from this switch to here. They've been doing it that way since 1952, I believe. It's a great concept, why would you change it? Others have improved on it a little bit, but for them, they invented it, why would they change it? So to do that, you're gonna do your bridge, your neck pickup first, and then your bridge is gonna go alongside of it. So I like to twist these together. That's why you tinned them. They're not gonna bird cage these or do any of that other stuff, and it's gonna make them slide through a lot better. Stick it in there and just hold it. It's a pretty big channel that they have routed, and it slides right through. We'll see how lucky we get on the next one. You can put one screw in here just to hold it. Like I said, we're not reusing the screws, but I'm just gonna do 1 or 2 screws just to hold it so it doesn't flip off when we turn it over again. Okay, that one's done. Same thing, twist these together. Insert your bridge through. Coil extra wire in there, hold it, and then pull it back through. Okay, you can put another 2 screws again, just to hold it. One short, one long. Okay, put another 2 screws again, just hold it. One short, one long. I'm going to do this with a solder paste brush. It's a pretty stiff brush. It makes it a little easier to get in there. You don't need a whole lot. It's just more you have to clean up in the end. So this is a good one. Flow some new solder in. Okay, so I have a good base now, and I'm going to put this wire to it. I like to put the wires back this way so they loop around, so that doesn't jam the slack towards the guitar hole when you put it back together. Gets everything out of your way, sets you up for ease when you put it back together like a pool game. Okay. Next, we're going to do our positive connection. And that flows nice because we're using good solder and we flexed it. Okay, so your other side of this coil tap is going to go here. This one's a pain. I might go grab a set of needle nose pliers to do this, so you don't burn your fingers. Really no way to do this with a set of helping hands for this one, unless you take the whole pot out, but I don't feel like doing that. All right, so that is all the connections that we have. So it's a good habit to double check everything you did, make sure it looks shiny, make sure you don't have any strands poking out, make sure everything's routed the way you want it, Make sure everything from the factory looks good. This is your chance to do that. Some people don't have the same work ethic or attention to detail as you do, so this is your chance to do that. So mine looks good, so we're to the point where we're going to clean everything off now and assemble. Okay, we have our pickup wires through. They came through very nice. Well, you don't need to label them on this style guitar. Obviously, the bridge pickup is going to be a lot longer and the neck pickup is going to be shorter. I don't ever trim leads. People will advise you to do that. A lot of companies that put Seymour Duncans in from the factory don't do that either. If you get a Charvel, they'll be bent over like this with a tie wrap and they'll be soldered in there. You never know when you might have to change a pot or something and you may need to take this apart. I never change them. I don't think it's a good practice. Just keep them how they are. You'll have no problems. So what we're going to do before we get into this is I'm going to fix this wire that came off. A little bit of flux. I am going to retin that because it probably wasn't the greatest solder job from the factory. That's probably why it came off. Pull our cavity back out. Just going to set it high enough to where I can actually work on this. And because I put the flux on there, I was able to reflow that solder. Okay. All right. So we're going to do bridge first. So with the bridge, you're going to have 3 connections you need to make. You're going to have your positive, you're going to have your negative, and you're going to have your coil tab. The ground, I like to leave this strip back as much as it is for what I've tinned. That gives you the surface area for more of a connection because it's basically a fillet type connection that's flat. So the other ones we are going to trim back a little bit. So we're going to do the ground first. We'll do that for a couple reasons. That's going to hold the wire there for us while we do this to make it easier to work. You may need to reflux this connection, you may not. It's a good habit to do that anyway. But I know this one's good, so I'm not going to do it. I can see that it's shiny, and I can see that it's a good connection. Okay. Next, we're going to do our positive. I am going to cut that back a little bit because it's going on a loop style connection on this volume knob. So leave about 1/4 of an inch or less because the actual insulation will shrink back a little bit when you heat it up. So I'm going to flux it again so it flows into that solder that's already there. Okay, we're good on that one. I'm going to trim this bend back a little bit. I'm going to leave it a little bit longer because we are going on a push-pull type of connection. This is, you'll see why I wanted to strip those a little bit long because you're going and you're crossing these. So what this is going to do, this is going to be another fillet type connection. You're going to have a really, it's not impossible, but with 2 wires twisted together, you're going to have a really hard time getting this into the holes there. And this is how other guitar manufacturers do it from the factory. So why change it? Okay, that's one pickup out of the way, which was the bridge. Now we're going to do the neck. This one's a little bit harder because you don't have the control pot fully out of the guitar, unless you want to desolder all those wires, which I don't really feel like doing. So do the same order. Cut back your connections. And when you do this too, the cuttings will stay in the tool if you do it up like this. If you point the tool down, they'll fall. So if you point the tool up, they'll stay in there. So what I like to do is get the full cut, take the tool, tap it into a wastebasket. You don't want that on your towel or whatever protection you're doing because it could potentially scratch the guitar. And then we're just gonna trim the ground just a little bit. That got a little bit. You can flex them all at the same time. You'll just get a little bit mess on your hands. So, same thing. We're going to do this ground first. Move any other wiring out of the way that Gibson might have shorted you on. I mentioned that a couple times. I'm actually going to add a little bit more solder to this. They didn't do the greatest job from the factory on that one. And we have the cavity put back together. So just one of the reasons why you want to clean this and how we're doing it is I'm just using your standard alcohol that you can get at a pharmacy or Walmart and a Q-tip. This is a level of the gunk that comes off of there. Everything that comes off of here is acidic. So that's the reason why you want to do that. It can corrode the wires, it can corrode the metal around it and leave a general chalkiness. So really want to do that. That's really important. It's not going to corrode the wires that are underneath the solder. They're encapsulated. It will corrode the wires outside where they just emerge from the solder. So that's why they get loose and they can break off like that. So somebody didn't do that from the factory, and that's why we're doing it now. So close up of the finished view. And then we're ready to assemble the guitar. Okay, now that we have the guitar put back together, we want to check all our wiring and connections. I have this plugged into an amp right now. And I have the volume knobs up and I have the tones all the way up. Actually, the tones bypassed on this. We'll unbypass it. So I don't hear any audacious hum or anything that sounds out of the ordinary. Pretty quiet in humbucker mode. One of the beautiful things about Seymour Duncan pickups, at least this set, I have this in quite a few guitars, and their pickups in general, they do not hum when in single coil split mode, okay? So we'll just check the humbucker mode first. So I'm in the bridge position right now. We should have output across these coils. So the way you do this is gently, just rub something metallic on there. It can be aluminum, whatever it needs to, well, it needs to be conductive. So something steel, something metallic. Okay, we'll do that in split mode. So that should be mainly the focus on this one right here. And that's a higher pitch, less one on there. So we know that pickup's good, okay? We're gonna go to neck humbucker mode. So the focus should be on these slugs and there, okay? Let's tap it. Yep, way brighter. Less emphasis on that. So we know everything is good with the wiring. Let's check the tone as well. So I'm gonna unbypass the tone. We're in neck. I'm gonna roll that off. Very muffled, we know we're good on that. Let's go to bridge. Very muffled. Okay, so we know all our wiring's good. So at this point, you can give yourself a pat on the back. You can mark that off your list that you know how to install Seymour Duncan pickups. We're gonna restring the guitar and we're good to go. Thanks for sticking around with me on this one, guys.